game. He's on the injury report. He's not playing. Also, Eric Kendricks is most likely not going to play in this game either.
The other one would be Adam Thielen, who's been on and off dealing with a hamstring. I would not play Thielen in this particular game. So I don't know who that leaves for the Vikings from an offensive standpoint.
Laquan Treadwell.
Diggs and Madison.
And Madison didn't miss last week's game, leaving me hoping that Mike Boone could somehow be my savior and score 30 points in a game. He managed 3.
I saw Monday night's game. If Mike Boone is the starting back, I'd give the Vikings no chance of winning a game, period. Because Mike Boone is not, look, they may have a solid offensive line, but Mike Boone is not the answer at running back. So I question their depth at that position. They couldn't establish anything Monday night against the Green Bay Packers, who basically was trying to give them the game in the first half.
Neil, you locked in the Vikings here.
Yeah, for a very simple reason. You all saw them last week getting absolutely thrashed at home by the Green Bay Packers, their biggest rivals. This game's all about Minnesota getting some pride back on the board, and I think I don't care who starts and who doesn't start. Minnesota will be desperate to put some smiles on those Viking fans' faces.
What would we say the Bears' biggest need is? And let's not say quarterback.
Draft picks.
Competency and offensive play calling. There's no reason for them to have the draft they had last year as far as picking up Montgomery where they did, still having Tariq Cohen on the roster and trading away Jordan Howard to not run the football this season. That made absolutely no sense. Between Montgomery and Cohen, this team should have had 1,500-plus yards rushing, and I don't even think they're remotely close to that right now. That speaks to Matt Nagy, and I don't care that he's an Andy Reid disciple and they run the same stuff. And, you supposedly saw 2 similar offenses on Sunday night this past week. Run the football. Like, you don't have these stud wide receivers. Like, the wide receiving core is okay. It's not great. And Trubisky is still learning the position in year 3. There is no reason to put everything on his shoulders to make him the lead guy in this offense. He should have leaned on that running game. Did something with the offensive line as far as building that up to be a little bit better and protecting Trubisky. I mean, he missed 3 games this year due to injury because of one game where they basically passed the ball 50 times and ran it 10.
I mean, we spent a lot of time on the Vikings too here, Rob, but the one team with the worst cap space is the Minnesota Vikings with a projected negative 8.8.
Yeah, they're in an interesting spot. When you look at their contracts too, there's no one that jumps out to me as like, oh, that's the guy they're going to cut in order to get under. I think, Monty's in that area, so he might know a little better than me on this. But just from the looks of it, they could cut Everson Griffin, who is a good player still, and get out of the cap situation. That would save them $13.1 million. Other than that, they're paying a lot of guys a lot of money, obviously, because they're in this spot, but none of them are bad contracts.
I think they can get out of Kirk Cousins' contract.
No, they can't. He's only got too much.
That's fully guaranteed.
I thought there was something strange, though, about that guarantee that gave them an out.
No, there is no out in that contract.
He is fully guaranteed.
All right.
So they from the looks of it, it looks like maybe Everson Griffin is the guy you cut, but he's still good. So it stinks that you even have to do that.
Monty, what you have any insights there from Minneapolis?
I mean, if he becomes a cap casualty, that's, the way the business of the NFL, they do have some good young pass rushers. I mean, the Vikings defense is pretty solid. And I mean, that just comes with good drafting, good signing, good players. I mean, it is what it is. I'm sure they're going to have someone in there to do something to make some moves, but I mean, it's a far cry from either the Bills or the Falcons. They're just kind of where you're at when you're stuck with good players and good teams, and you're going to have to make some tough choices.
All right. The next game on our list, the Cleveland Browns, 6-9, are at the Cincinnati Bengals, 1-14. The Browns are 22nd in the power rankings. Bengals are 32nd. Browns are favored by 2.5 points in this one. They are also my most disappointing team from the 2019 season. Now, I am not sure if they have any pride left to play for, but this game is all about pride. And the Bengals can't screw up the number 1 draft pick by winning, which I think is interesting because it does give them a little more impetus to actually go out and play than they would have had if they needed to lose this particular game. I have no idea which Browns team is going to show up, Neil.
Well, quite frankly, Jay, who cares?
Right.
Thank you, Neil.
My question to you, Jay, would be this time. Well, at the beginning of next season, will that Beckham kid still be there?
I think he is. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's truth to this come get me stuff that's been happening with this particular team. But quite honestly, I don't see how the Browns get out of any of this situation. And the Browns are okay in cap space. They're right smacked out. They're kind of in the middle, a little on the top side with $51.8 million in cap space.
Beckham is under contract. He's not going anywhere. They're going to get in there a real coach. It's probably the most desirable open coaching position in the offseason with all the talent they have.
Excuse me.
Start the hype train again next year. This Browns team is going to look good on paper. They're going to it'll be a hit replay for next year. It'll be the exact same thing.
64 degrees and rain for Sunday to add to that game. By the way, just like I'm all over the place with my assessment of this game, we're all over this place in how we're picking. James, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals in this one.
Absolutely. I mean, why not? Look at the Bengals. I mean, they only have one win of the season. Your boyfriend, Andy Dalton, is playing football of some kind, and this team puts players on the field who look like they want to be there. That's all I got.
I tell you, Jay, there's one guy in that Cincinnati Bengals team, and I love him as a player, and I have done since he came out. He's just a beautiful player to watch. But AJ Green, he's off my radar now. He's gone. He's been he's just taking the piss, isn't he, all season?
In an interesting twist of fate, they finally put him on IR this week.
Yeah, that was genius.
I don't know why he wasn't there the whole time. There must be something other than the injury going on behind the scenes between AJ Green and the Bengals. Absolutely,
because this is the final year of his contract, so he's a free agent come the last day of the season.
Yep.
I think, we're all of the accord that in some way, shape, or form, the Bengals will try to keep him, whether that means a franchise tag or throwing a buttload of money at him. Personally, if I were AJ Green, I'd want out. Whether he wants that or not, we have no idea because he hasn't come out and said one way or the other whether he wants to stay in Cincinnati or explore his options. I'm pretty sure he will take visits with other teams before he makes a decision.
I think that's clear, surely.
He actually has come out and said
in Pennsylvania that could use
winning. He likes Cincinnati. I do think the team's going to franchise him.
Mm-hmm.
He is listed at NFLTradeRumors.co as the 11th ranked free agent this coming offseason. Now, he's also 32 with a litany of foot injuries. Mm. I do not have a jersey waiting for AJ Green, and my team needs a wide receiver.
You pick him up. You better bring his physical therapist with him.
Let's put it this way, Jay. I have to believe that your training staff is much better than the one in Cincinnati. And oftentimes you tend to see that players who are injured a lot with one team, when they leave and go somewhere else, they're pretty much healthy for the remainder of their careers with a new team. And I think that has a lot to do with the medical staff and training staff. Now, heaven forbid anybody go to Jacksonville because we already know what happened.
Hold on, James. You're choosing the wrong player to do that. I would bet money there's nothing physically wrong with that guy.
You're saying there's nothing wrong with AJ Green?
You wait. I tell you that injury he's got is an ankle injury. Yeah. If he was traded to the New England Patriots a few weeks ago, that ankle injury would have mysteriously vanished.
He and Jalen Ramsey have the same agent, probably.
Absolutely. It's the same. Absolutely, Monty. That's he's just taking the piss. Come on. There's nothing. He just didn't want to play for a team that was 1-12, 1-13. Now 1-14. Soon to be 2-14.
So Joe Burrow is probably going to end up being the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Does Zach Taylor live another season past next year in Cincinnati?
Yes. They have a chief owner. Yes, he does.
I think he's achieved the goal that they wanted, no?
Perhaps. I suppose that's one way to look at it.
The question, of course, Rob, you might have a view here as well, but some people have, the people who don't like Joe Burrow do say he is an Andy Dalton clone.
That's his maybe floor is Andy Dalton. I think he's better than Andy Dalton. He's definitely he's more athletic than Andy Dalton.
Who isn't?
Well,
other than Tom Brady.
But
AJ Green.
The next game on our list is the Green Bay Packers 12-3. They are 6th in our power rankings. The Detroit Lions 3-11-1 are 30th in our power rankings, and that's too high, frankly. The Lions should be 31. The Packers favored by 13 in this particular game. Lions have won 4 of their past 5, lost by only 1 point back in October. But David Blau and the rocket scientist only has a year left to prove that he can turn this team around, even though you would have thought he would have done it this year, Neil.
Yeah, you would have thought so. I'm just stunned by the fact that we're heading into a long run of James locking every game on this spreadsheet, which is
James locks every game this year.
That's right.
This year. He does.
I didn't lock every game.
Last week he decided not to lock any. This week he's back to locking a whole bunch.
Last week it was quite difficult to pick games.
I think it's good actually that I'm back on this podcast to keep him under control. James, sorry yourself out.
I mean, the Lions are an interesting problem. I think they're pretty decent in terms of cap space. They're right about in the middle with 40.4. But they got a quarterback who has a wife recovering from brain cancer, and he himself is recovering from a back injury that had seen Tony Romo retire because of. I don't know what's going on with Detroit. I mean, Matt Patricia has done literally nothing to improve that team from year 1 to year 2.
Oh, there you go. You've just found.
I mildly disagree.
Okay.
I think before this team has been hit worse with the injury bug than most, and I think, speaking of James' point, maybe they need to do something to fix that internally as far as what they're doing for the players. But I think that this team was a pretty tough out the first quarter or so of the year when they had all of their guns available to them. So I think that I realize it's probably hot take-ish to say that Detroit is maybe in a better spot than what's perceived, but I think they're not in a terrible spot. He's fortified the heck out of that defensive line. I think they got one of the better defensive lines once everybody's healthy. I don't think they're terrible. I think he has everybody. They're not a terrible football team.
I'm with Rob on this one. I think if you put anyone with their 4th string quarterback out there, they're going to lose a lot of games. You like to put it on Patricia and go to the narrative that all these ex-Bill Belichick coaches aren't that good. Yeah. The Lions were playing okay before he got hurt. They lost their first-round draft pick. They're going to be a lot better next year than they were this year. I just think that there's just so much of a difference between Stafford versus Curtis Blow or whoever the quarterback is. I mean,
Curtis Blow.
You got to pump the brakes. Brakes on a bus, brakes on a car, Pod.
Well, Mike Tomlin seems to have done a reasonable job.
Neil Kiper Jr., they're going to be picking at number 3, assuming the Redskins don't win this week. Who are the Lions looking at pick number 3?
Quarterback. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud?
Well, yeah. I mean, what do you want for the Detroit Lions? Do you want offensive line help? Do you want defensive backs? I mean, I really don't know what Detroit are looking for.
Neil,
apart from the head coach,
is this too high for Delpit?
For 2018 Delpit, no, this would be perfect. 2019 Delpit, not quite sure, Rob, but he's been on injuries, hasn't he, this year?